DreAllDay.com.
Before we start, please like and comment on this video so I can get your feedback. Also, click that subscribe button so you can get all the new content I'm dropping on this channel. And the free book, the mental handbook, physical book, Work on Your Game University, just take care of the shipping and handling, send this right to your doorstep. Let's get started. What's going on, everybody? Dre Baldwin, DreAllDay.com. We are back. 2017 NBA team by team season previews. We are talking the LA Clippers. LA Clippers went 53-29 last year. Very respectable record. Got into the first round and then they lost Chris Paul. Chris Paul breaks his hand during the middle of the Portland series. Portland ends up taking them out. I think the Clippers would have won that series had Chris Paul not gotten injured. I talked about that in the Portland video. But let's talk about the Clippers roster, what we see happening this upcoming season, because there are some question marks looking at this roster. They pretty much look like they have pretty much the same team. They brought in Brandon Bass, who's 31 years old, energy guy who can grab some rebounds, score a couple points here and there. Jamal Crawford, they re-signed him to they're paying him $13 million a year. They picked up Raymond Felton, who at one point Raymond Felton was a pretty damn good point guard. Then he got fat, and then I think he's back into shape, but I don't know if Raymond Felton still got, I don't know how much he got left in the tank at 32 years old. And just the way his body has fluctuated, what is Raymond Felton going to bring to the table? Those of you who've been watching Ray Felton, tell me, because I don't know. Blake Griffin, obviously we know. Wesley Johnson still on the roster. DeAndre Jordan, Luke Mbah-a-Moute, Chris Paul, Paul Pierce, JJ Redick, Austin Rivers. They signed Maurice Bates, who was playing for the rival Golden State Warriors. Now he's going to play for the Clippers. I don't think he's going to even, actually I do think he'll play. He'll actually get some good playing time on his team just because he can score. He can hit outside shots and play that big man position. So I think he'll get playing time because of that. Austin Rivers is getting $11 million a year. Thanks, Dad. Good thing to have your dad as the general manager. You want to make $11 million a year. I don't think anyone else would have gave him that much money, but maybe they would have, just looking at the way that the salaries went this offseason. He would have had a job, but I don't know if he would have got that much. But again, maybe just because of the salaries he would have. Paul Pierce coming back. It's probably Paul Pierce's last season. Paul Pierce is pretty much done, in my opinion. Those of you who watch Paul Pierce, you tell me if I got that wrong. And then, of course, we got the usual suspects. Chris Paul, DeAndre, and Blake. That's as far as this team's going to go, as far as those three guys take it. I think, like I said, they would have won the first round last year. They would have got to the second round against Golden State. They would have lost to the Golden State Warriors in the second round of the playoffs, though. It would have been a bloodbath of a series because these two teams are rivals. And for whatever reason, Golden State gets Blake Griffin. Blake Griffin really goes at Golden State. Golden State really goes at Blake Griffin. Chris Paul and Steph Curry really go at each other. Would have been a hell of a series to watch, but they definitely would have lost that series. The challenge with the LA Clippers roster is they had the exact same team they had last year. That team they had last year was not a championship winning team. They would not have beaten OKC. They wouldn't have beat the Warriors. They would not have beaten the Cleveland Cavaliers. Why they bring the exact same team back this year, I don't know. You re-sign Austin Rivers to $11 million. You give Jamal Crawford a re-sign to $13 million. That's $24 million, ladies and gentlemen. Why would you give $24 million to Jamal Crawford and Austin Rivers? Aren't they, I mean, they pretty much do about the same things. Jamal Crawford and Austin Rivers, they pretty much do about the same things. Those two guys are not going to help you win a championship. I don't think Jamal Crawford and Austin Rivers is not in the rotation on the team that wins the championship. In my opinion, he's on a team that wins the championship. He's not playing in the decisive games. If it's an 8-man rotation, Austin Rivers is not in it. Jamal Crawford may be your 8th guy because he can come in and get some points. He can create some shots from the outside, score some points. He can do that. Jamal Crawford can't guard anybody. He pretty much can play one position, the 2 guard. He's not really a point guard because he's a score-first guy. He's not big enough to guard any guys on the wing. I don't know why you pay $24 million to these two guys. I'm not saying you can't have them on your team, but if you're trying to win a title, which I think the Clippers are trying to do, is why they paid Doc Rivers the money, why they paid $20 million to 3 other guys, Blake, DeAndre, and Chris Paul. Why would you spend $24 million on 2 bench guys who should be 8th men on a good team? Why would you do that? That's the part that I don't understand about the Clippers. Then they brought in a guy like, they brought in Allen Anderson, they brought in Brandon Bass. I mean, what are these guys going to do? They brought in Maurice Bates. What are these guys going to do to change the situation for the Clippers? This is what this team is. This is a team that's going to make the second round of the playoffs, maybe get into the Western Conference Finals if they don't choke in the semifinals like they did against Houston a couple years ago, if they don't get injuries like they did against Portland last year, which would have gotten to the semis, but they would have lost in the next round. That's pretty much what this team has been the whole time Chris Paul's been on the roster. Why do you keep bringing back the same team? I'm going to tell you why. It's because their general manager is terrible. The general manager is a really bad general manager. He should not have a job in the NBA as a general manager ever again. And guess what? The general manager is also the coach. Doc Rivers is the GM at the LA Clippers. He's the one who signed Austin Rivers, his son, to an $11 million contract. He signed Jamal Crawford to a $13 million contract. And for whatever reason, this team hasn't gotten any better in like 4 or 5 years. Not at all. Who they added to the roster in the last 4 or 5 years that made them better? Can anyone tell me? After the Chris Paul addition, what has the Clippers organization done to make their team better roster-wise? Nothing. They already had DeAndre, they had Blake, who both got better. Chris Paul's the man, one of the best point guards in the league. What else have they done? Jamal Crawford, Austin Rivers, Paul Pierce, who was good for like 1 season since he's been in LA. What else have they done to make this team better? Jeff Green? No. Brandon Bass? No. Wes Johnson? No. JJ Redick's on the team. He's a good player. But who else? What do the Clippers have? What is going to make them contend? How can they beat Golden State this year? Golden State added Kevin Durant to the team. All right, they dropped Harrison Barnes and picked up Kevin Durant. San Antonio Spurs lost Tim Duncan because he retired. Then they signed Pau Gasol. Let's just say that's all they did. OKC got worse. They lost Kevin Durant. They picked up Vic Oladipo. They lost Serge Ibaka. They picked up Vic Oladipo and a couple other pieces. They're probably going to go down, but if you lose one of the top 5 players in the league, you'll probably go down in any situation. But look at the Spurs and look at the Warriors. Those are 2 teams that we see possibly ended up in the Western Conference Finals. For the Clippers to make it to the Western Conference Finals, they have to beat one of those teams somewhere along the line in the playoffs. How are they going to do that if the Spurs picked up Pau Gasol? Let's just say that's all they did. Picked up Pau Gasol. They lost Tim, but they picked up Pau. The Golden State Warriors lost Harrison Barnes and they lost Maurice Spates, if that matters. And they picked up Kevin Durant. And they were already better than the Clippers. So 2 teams is already better than you, made more additions and better additions than you did. You actually got worse. The Clippers got worse this offseason. They didn't lose anybody, but they got worse. Because the teams that they need to beat to get to the Western Conference Finals, not even the NBA Finals, the Western Conference Finals, those teams improved while the Clippers got worse because they didn't do anything. They didn't add anyone of consequence to this roster. This is what needs to happen to the LA Clippers. And first of all, Doc Rivers needs to stop being a GM. He's not a good GM. And none of this stuff that I'm about to propose is going to happen as long as Doc Rivers is a general manager. Because he's not a good general manager. Being a general manager in the NBA and being a coach in the NBA are both full-time jobs. Those are 2 full-time jobs. You can't do both jobs at the exact same time. It's not possible. You got to pick one. Doc's trying to do both at the same time. It's not working. Obviously, it's not working. He got a good enough talent that they keep making the playoffs, so it looks like he's, quote unquote, successful, and he's won the championship in the NBA, been to the finals and lost. So he's respected because of the championship ring that he has on his fingers, but he's not a good GM. And Steve Ballmer, the owner, needs to be smart enough to fire Doc the GM and let Doc the coach see what he can do and hire an actual general manager. This is what this team needs to do. Blake Griffin needs to go, or DeAndre Jordan needs to go. One of them got to go. DeAndre Jordan almost went. He was about to sign to Dallas last year. Then they had the emoji battle on Twitter, and they ended up getting DeAndre Jordan back. Cool. Better than losing DeAndre Jordan better to keep him than to lose him. I mean, there ain't too many people you can pick up in free agency to replicate what DeAndre Jordan can do. But DeAndre, Blake, and Chris Paul together, this is the core of this team. We can agree with that, right? 4 years these guys have been together, all right? At least 4 years, I think 4 years. Let me make sure. 3 or 4 years. I'll check that in a moment. They haven't won anything. They have not contended. Have they even been to the conference finals yet? This team that they have here? So obviously this isn't working. Chris Paul's 31 years old. He's going to turn 32 during the playoffs next year. If they're going to make a run with Chris Paul, they got to do it now. They can't wait. He's been in LA since 2012. 4 years. No, 5 years. 15, 16. So 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. Chris Paul's been on this roster. DeAndre and Blake were already on the team when Chris Paul got there. So 5 years this team's been together. These are the 3 best players on the team. The team hasn't gone anywhere. Aren't you eventually going to make a move? One of these 3 guys got to go. One of them got to go. I think the guy that has to go, since you're not going to find too many point guards to replace Chris Paul, you keep Chris Paul. You're not going to find a 7-foot athletic center to replace DeAndre Jordan. You keep DeAndre. And it's not because Blake is easily replaceable. He's absolutely not. But the way Chris Paul dominates the ball, the way DeAndre Jordan can just be a finishing big, they work together perfectly. Chris Paul and Blake Griffin, they don't really mix together perfectly, because Blake Griffin's a guy who Blake can put the ball on the floor. He got a little bit of handle. He can create his own shot. You can give Blake the ball at the 3-point line, let him create a shot, whether he wants to shoot a 3, a mid-range jumper, or drive into the basket, or post up, do one of those funky post-up moves that he does. Blake Griffin, you can give him the ball and let him kind of do his thing. DeAndre Jordan is not a give me the ball, let me do my thing. He's a throw me an alley-oop so I can catch it and dunk it. JJ Redick is a throw me the ball so I can catch it and dunk it. These are the type of players that Chris Paul works best with. The problem with the LA Clippers right now is Blake Griffin and Chris Paul, they're I'd say the two best players on their team. They don't have the in-syncness. What's the word I'm looking for? They're just not fluid together, those two guys. Not as fluid as they could be. And that's the reason why this isn't going to work long term. And we already know it doesn't work. This is not a prediction. We already know. We got 5 years of knowing this doesn't work if you're trying to win the title. It works if you want to make the playoffs, but it doesn't work if you're trying to win the title. I say you trade Blake Griffin, get a young star, whoever that may be, or get some high draft picks, some top 5 lottery picks from some bum team that's going to be terrible in the next couple of years, and there are plenty of those. They got to make some kind of move. This is not going to overall work. Then you must fire the GM, fire Doc Rivers, because he signed Jamal Crawford to $13 million for no reason, signed Austin Rivers to $11 million for no good reason, aside it being his son. I don't see where the benefits come in for the team. If you're a Clippers fan, you tell me, am I missing something here? What am I not seeing with this roster? Where are they going with what they have? The fact they bring the exact same team back. Yes, they would have made the second round last year without the Chris Paul injury. I'll give you that. But they wasn't beating Golden State. They were not beating the Spurs. They were not beating OKC then. They'll beat OKC now, but they're not beating the Spurs or Golden State now with this team. So what happens now? You tell me what happens with this team. Where are they going? Why is Doc Rivers still the GM? Why did he sign his son to an $11 million contract? Man, I wish my dad was the GM of a team in any sport. I don't care what sport it is. I don't care if it's soccer. You sign me $11 million, I'll sit on the bench happily and show up to practice and work hard every day. Not to say that Austin Rivers shouldn't be in the NBA. But again, what team is going to give him $11 million? That's what I want to know. Now, Jamal Crawford's like 36 years old. He gave Jamal Crawford $13 million. Jamal Crawford, we know what we're going to get out of him. Is he a $13 million guy? And again, we know the numbers are kind of skewed because the numbers went up for free agency and all that stuff. But couldn't you have spent that on someone who could actually help this team get better? We know what having Jamal Crawford on the team is going to do. Why would you give him $13 million? It's not going to help you get any better. It's keeping you in the same space. I don't get what the Clippers are doing. Actually, I do get what the Clippers are doing. They got a bad GM. They keep letting him do bad GM things, and this is what happens when you have a bad general manager. Ladies and gentlemen, Clippers fans, unfortunately, this is where y'all headed this year. I say the Clippers can win the same amount of games they won last year. They'll win between 50 and 55 games. They're going to make the playoffs. They'll probably have home court advantage in the first round. They are going to probably win their first round series. They're going to get to the second round, at which they will have to play against the Spurs or they have to play against the Golden State Warriors. They're going to lose, and this is if the roster stays the same. Now, they make changes, then this can be different. This all can kind of go out the window. They're going to lose in the second round to the Spurs or the Golden State Warriors, barring any injuries to any team. And then we're going to be right back here in the same space. Eventually, something got to give. Either Chris Paul's going to retire, Blake Griffin's going to leave as a free agent, Doc's going to get fired as a coach or GM, maybe both. And then finally, some smart things will start happening if Steve Ballmer, the owner of the Clippers, starts hiring some right people. He got to put the right people in place. So I don't blame Doc for being a bad GM. I blame the owner for giving him the job of GM, knowing that he's a bad GM, and letting him keep the job, seeing the results of him being a bad GM. So this is really on the owner. It's not on Doc Rivers. It's on the owner. Everybody, Clippers fans, I can't even apologize. Y'all know what this is. Y'all already knew what this was before I said it. You tell me if I got this wrong as far as what they're going to do this year. If you see a different way they can be successful keeping this roster together, you see what they can do with Blake Griffin. Do you think DeAndre should go, Blake should go, Chris Paul should go, nobody should go? Something else that can happen that can make this team successful? If there is, I don't know about it, but I want to know. Leave it down there in the comments, and let's get to it in the next. Well, leave it down in the comments, and we'll get to it in the comments. But the next team that I'm going to review, let me tell you who that is. I think we only got 5 teams left in the NBA now that we've covered the LA Clippers. The next team we cover shall be the Oklahoma City Thunder. This team probably won't be in the top 5, but I'll get to that in the OKC video. I'll see y'all tomorrow talking Oklahoma City Thunder. Work on your game. DreAllDay.com.